along with many people who were playing video games in the 1990s and early 2000s, have a soft, cozy spot in our hearts for Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. We look back on them fondly with warmth and joy and just beautiful nostalgia. And I'm here to tell you that it's sad. It's all actually sad and heartbreaking. Both of those games are genuinely so depressing. Going back and playing through them as an adult, I found so many horrific things about them that just genuinely make me so sad, and I'm here to tell you about them. I'm here to tell you why this particular incarnation of Link, the hero of time, is the darkest and most tragic. Ah! Oh my god! I'm ruining your childhood! In Ocarina of Time, our first, oh, this is sad, moment comes from Link, our beloved little angel baby boy, is fairyless. Right off the rip, you notice that he doesn't have a fairy, like all of the other Kokiri in the entire forest. He is the only Kokiri to not have a fairy, and kids are ruthless, even the eternal ones. Luckily, the Deku Tree, his father figure, summons Navi, a fairy, to aid Link on his quest to rise up against evil. He kind of only has Saria, who is his best and only friend, who is kind of a favorite amongst the Kokiri. She has a little bit of a soft spot for our boy Link, much to the dismay of little twerp-ass Kokiri, like this guy. I hate this guy. Saria's is the first face we see on our journey once Navi wakes us up, and she is so excited to see not only us, but also our fairy that we finally have after all this time. She giddily sends us on our way to the Deku Tree, who has summoned us, which is a very cool thing. We get our equipment, yada yada yada, we pass this goofy brat child who hates us, yada yada yada. Oh god, your father figure and genuinely the most important person to all of the Kokiri is dying right now and needs your help. So you help him without hesitation, go inside of him to clear up the monsters and baddies. You go down to beat this big old spider monster in his stomach, and then there you go, day saved, right? Wrong! The Deku Tree straight up dies. Just dies right in front of you as soon as you think that you've helped him. Link actually sits and watches the color drain from him as he dies. It's actually pretty traumatizing as a player also. Genuinely kind of messed up. I'm underselling it. It's wild. Sure, you get a funky jewel and get told to go to Hyrule Castle. That's great. But that's weird, because Kokiri can't leave the forest, right? Like, they literally die if they leave the forest. And I'm sure we're not gonna come back to that later. Leaving the forest, our best friend Saria gives us an ocarina to remember her by, stating that she always knew that we were special. We're different from her and her friends, but that's okay. We'll be friends forever, won't we? Anyways, time for emotional trauma as Link tearfully runs off out of Kokiri Forest, leaving Saria standing on the bridge alone. Our journey is officially started as we go out into Hyrule Field and make our way to Zelda, and we finally get a glimpse of this evil that the Deku Tree is talking about. A man named Ganondorf and his evil eyes are meeting with the king of Hyrule, and Zelda hates it. He gives off the most heinous vibes. Like, he might as well be wearing a t-shirt that just says, "I am the bad guy," because he's dressed head to toe in the most villainous attire, but nobody seems to believe Zelda when she says so. Because who knows, man, everything is pointing to red flags, but everybody just decides to look away. We are fairly quickly met with a quick heart attack moment because we're doing a little peeping on this man, and he glances to the side like a creepy guy, and we're terrified that he's seen us, so we decide that that's a good sign to get a boogie on. After getting our little quest from Zelda, getting the jewels from the Goron and the Zora, and dealing with their issues, we return back to Hyrule Castle Town, where we are unfortunately, horrifically, suddenly met with our new friend frantically escaping the town. She's on horseback with Impa, fear and terror just frozen on her face, and she, last-ditch effort, tosses an ocarina, and it lands in the moat for Link to pick up. It's not long before we see what is giving Zelda chase, and it's none other than Evil Man Magoo Ganondorf. Oh no, such a shock. He's evil doing evil things? What? After some gentle Ganondorf-induced fear, and he trods off on his terrifying horse on his terrifying day, all the sky is black and scary, we decide to just swan dive into the moat and grab that ocarina and immediately throw away the freaking ocarina that our best friend gave us. Like, we've had it for not even that long. It's something that's always gonna bother me. We just cried over leaving our friend and we just... Sick new blue ocarina, man. This beige one sucks. Anyways, once we grab that ocarina, we learn the Song of Time, which will allow us passage into the Temple of Time and the Sacred Realm and the Master Sword. I'm gonna be honest, it's just like a funky door that somehow lets you into the Sacred Realm that has the Triforce in it, and this is very big and huge. So we waltz our little booty cheeks in there and grab the Master Sword, and suddenly we've lost 7 whole years of our life in an instant. We wake up 7 years later because apparently we needed to grow up to be strong enough to defeat Ganondorf, and that's just such a terrifying thought to me. Yeah, let's go do this, and then you lose your entire childhood. That's weird though, right? Because the Kokiri are all eternal children, like I mentioned earlier. But we could grow up. Huh. Shocking things aside, Link seems completely unfazed because we've got stuff to do. Leaving the Temple of Time, we see things in Hyrule are bad. Really, really bad. Death Mountain is on fire, the sky is a creepy dark purple, and Hyrule Castletown is just infested with zombies. 7 years of Ganondorf did a number on the world, and we realized that us going in to the Temple of Time and opening that door basically left the door open to Ganondorf to waltz his way into the Sacred Realm and grab the Triforce of Power and wreak havoc on the land. But we can fix that, right? So onwards, we go back to our hometown of Kokiri Forest and we realize that things aren't great there either. The world is overrun by monsters and we truly realize that nothing of the Hyrule that we used to know is the same. We make our way to the Forest Temple and we're reunited with our best friend in the whole world whose ocarina we just decided to throw away when we got a new one. Unfortunately, that reunion is short-lived though, because the second that you finish the Forest Temple, you are told that Saria is now awakening as the Forest Sage, and she's whisked away immediately. Your best friend since babydom is just gone in an instant, just like that. And the final twist of the hypothetical pain knife in your heart is when you get the Forest Medallion, you get the message, Saria will always be ... your friend. How dare you! Oh. And now, because no matter how painful and sad something is, the world keeps spinning. And so you leave the Forest Temple and you realize that the Deku Tree has a little sprout. The new Deku Tree, new life, a light in the dark times. And that new light immediately starts just trauma dumping about your past, and you find out that you are adopted, your parents are dead as hell, and that you're not even a Kokiri. Obviously, you grew up, so you are a Hylian. And now everything makes sense. Your ability to grow up, your ability to leave the forest, why you were shunned and just always felt like an outsider. It finally clicks into place. But also, ow, oh my god, that's a lot of painful information at once. But we persevere because the world needs to keep going and Link needs to keep doing things no matter how horrible the information he receives is. We make our way through more of the dungeons, and some of them literally are torture dungeons. I'm not kidding. The bottom of the well and the Shadow Temple are literal actual torture dungeons. There's like blood, dead bodies, spirits around, genuinely horrifying. And Link, as a child, and an adult, but as a child also, has to fight Dead Hand. This thing. I, as a child, had to fight Dead Hand. One by one, after each of the temples, we realized that someone important to our childhood and our journey is a sage. Basically, we have to say goodbye to one of our friends every single time we complete a dungeon. Darunia, Rito, Impa, Navi, everybody. They just get yoinked from you. It's just such a bummer. The only exception to a friend that we met as a child that just doesn't get whisked away and leave us is Malin. She teaches us a song, Epona song, to be able to tame our wonderful Epona horse. And that's when we get a new lifelong friend in that sweet, beautiful horse. So, GG's. I don't really like that I said GG's. I feel like they'll make fun of me for that. This is YouTube, remember, yes. Now, we gotta backtrack a little bit, because there's been this character named Sheik, who has basically shown up for 30 seconds at a time every time we go to do another one of the temples. And Sheik says the most just cryptic hint messages to us, then teaches us a teleportation song, and then immediately dips, just disappears. And like every single time, Link's always like, what? Where did he go? And it's actually funny. There's not a lot of times where Link shows genuine emotion in these games, especially the earlier ones. So every time there's just a shot of Link like, huh? Huh? It just gives me a giggle. We're reunited with our friend Sheik when we get back to the Temple of Time after we clear out all of the other temples. And this is where one of the biggest plot twists in the whole game happens, and Sheik reveals himself to be Zelda, our friend who disappeared and we haven't seen since she was trotting off across Hyrule Field away from Ganondorf. She wants to help us fight Ganon and win! And immediately, she is kidnapped. The second that she takes off her disguise, Ganon's like, oh, there you are, you little shit, and grabs her and yoinks her all the way into Ganondorf's castle. As a child, I was like, oh my god, no, but now it just kind of makes me laugh. She's been in hiding for so many years, and she like immediately said, oh my god, Link, you're so powerful and strong, we can do this together, and just immediately gets like sniped from the fucking tower. A little big giant fight against big pig man Ganon, and then we beat his ass. Ganondorf is defeated, and then he is sealed away by the sages in the Sacred Realm. Hooray! Happy fun ending! Let's go! We then travel back in time to our childhood, where we are given the gift of being able to live out our childhood that was ripped away from us proper, and, you know, have a normal Hylian life. But our happy ending only lasts for so long, as Navi, our beloved fairy who has been with us every step of our journey, decides that she is done. She has fulfilled her purpose to Link. She flies off through a window in the Temple of Time, never to be seen again. Our friend who helped us through this entire harrowing journey just leaves our boy, just like that. Now, an aside here, because I'm apparently a horrible person who loves further pain and torment and emotional damage. A lot of people like to think that Navi is straight up dying here, and I like to also agree. You know, it feels a little out of character for her to just like peace out, and I think she just wants to leave and have Link not watch her die. People believe this because in the final fight with Ganon, he does this like weird magic at Navi and basically removes your ability to Z-target. I'm nerfing my Canadian stuff. Could you imagine if I said Z-target? Just think about that for a second. Z-target. She overcomes this, and I feel like using the last of her strength, she brings the ability back in the big beast fight. Then after that, I think she's really got nothing left, and she's used everything that she can and has to help Link just save the day one final time. And that just sucks. These games are just sad, bro. And canonically heartbreaking. This fits in with the narrative. So Navi is gone. I'm sad, you're sad, we're all sad. And then the game just ends. The game ends with us losing our friend. She is gone. And that's heartbreaking. Now we move on to Majora's Mask, and oh my god, this one is doozy, so everybody strap in. The intro of Majora's Mask starts with this. In the land of Hyrule, there echoes a legend held dearly by the royal family that tells of a boy. A boy who, after battling evil and saving Hyrule, crept away from the land that had made him a legend. Done with the battles he once waged across time, he embarked on a journey. A secret and personal journey. A journey in search of a beloved and invaluable friend. A friend with whom he parted ways when he finally fulfilled his heroic destiny and took his place among legends. And we fade into Link, alone on Epona in the woods, sad yet hopeful music playing, looking for Navi, our invaluable friend. Link was given his childhood back to enjoy, and he just couldn't do it without Navi. Ow. And of course, because the guy can't catch a break for a single second, he is jumped immediately by Skull Kid, who then is knocked off by Epona, and Link is knocked out on the ground. Skull Kid is rummaging through his little pockets, being just a general nuisance, and he steals our ocarina. He's doing his little doot-doots and giggles, and then Link wakes up and, you know, tries to get his stuff back, and Skull Kid says, absolutely not, and jumps onto Epona and then runs off. Just steals our horse and our stuff, just like that. We try to give chase, we try to grab onto Epona, but we're shaken off. We try to roll after them on foot, but they're just too fast. We're alone in the woods, following where we think they might have gone. Nearing the end of the chase, there's some shenanigans in the woods. We end up falling into this weird, endless void full of weird symbols and different colors, and we're just falling forever. And now a lot of people assume that Link is dying here, and there's like a lot of theories that like this whole stretch is Link like crossing over, making his way to the afterlife that is Termina or something. I respect it because that's pretty sad and heartbreaking, you fellow freaks who enjoy emotional pain. I happen to disagree though, just because there is canon from a later Zelda title that makes him surviving and living through this genuinely way sadder and more heartbreaking. I think this is just him going somehow to another dimension. So, as we reach the end of the seemingly endless void, we realize that we've fallen right into Skull Kid's trap. He's kind of a dick, so he decides it would be so haha funny if we get turned into a Deku scrub. And then pieces out. He's got these little two fairy friends with him, and one of them is too busy also being kind of a dick that she gets separated from the Skull Kid and her brother. That's Tattle. I personally love her. I think she's got incredible character growth throughout the game. We're kind of stuck with her now because she needs us to help get back to the Skull Kid and her brother Tattletale. Get it? Good names. Good names. It's kind of wild when I get to tell people that like their names are Tattletale because I feel like there are so many people who actually don't realize that. And it's clever and fun. So we try to follow them and get used to our little tiny Deku body, and we jump out of flowers and do some fun things. We come across this little sad looking tree, which Tattle even comments on. We can move on. I'm sure that's not going to come back later or anything. Once we do our little platforming and make our way over through the weird journey that we have to be on, we do a little anti-gravity loop-de-loop and end up in the basement of the clock tower of Termina. Such a funky little area that you only see for like 30 seconds. I wish I would just spend a little bit more time here in my playthroughs, even though there's genuinely nothing to do. It's still a funky little spot. But we meet the creepiest NPC in all of Zelda games, and I love him. This man is completely horrifying, and something that I only noticed in my more recent playthroughs is that he's the only NPC in the game that does like this weird jump cut of animations between like things he's saying. It's incredibly disjointed and frantic and very unsettling, and it's just very off-putting to watch. Other NPCs in the game either like don't really do much or just have the same looping animation over and over and nothing really changes, but he's just so emotive that it just punches you right in the face because it's so different than what you're used to seeing. He's creepy, he makes me uncomfortable, and apparently we need each other's help because we've met with a terrible fate, haven't we? Such a kick-ass line. Anyways, the Happy Mask Salesman wants us to get this creepy, cursed, ancient mask back from the Skull Kid. In return, he will help us de-Deku, which is fantastic because we kind of miss being a Hylian child. He tells us that we have to get back that which was stolen from us, and he says that we have 3 days to do it because he needs to get out of town, and boy howdy are we about to find out why. We're a Deku scrub who's out on the clock town, and we are just about to redo everything that we had to do as a child in Kokiri Forest. We don't belong here. We look weird because they aren't used to having Deku scrubs in town. The kids don't want to play with us, at least not in like a card-carrying club member kind of way. Even the dog hates us. Not only that, but once again we are faced with the impending apocalypse, as the scariest moon you have ever seen in your entire life is about to crash into Termina in 3 days' time. Link apparently has to stop that because he can't catch a break ever. Majora's Mask runs on like the 3-day cycle, but it's not midnight to midnight, it's 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. You have like about 6 hours in of like a 4th day, but it's still part of day 3. The 4th day is like when a lot of stuff will take place, so that's just important to know for later. For this first 3-day cycle, some shenanigans ensue. We're kind of stuck in Clocktown because the guards won't let us leave because we can't take care of ourselves. We do a little waiting, we do a lot of waiting, and finally, at the end of the 3rd day, when the clock strikes midnight, the clock tower opens because we're ushering in the Carnival of Time. You'll notice, wonderfully, beautifully, that as time goes on, the moon will be descending ever closer to Clocktown. The music gets slightly creepier and more frantic in Clocktown. It just elicits such a deep fear and like panic. The sound design is so good, the composition is so good, I love it so much. So by the 3rd day, there's just this full creepy song blended into the background of the Clocktown theme song. song. The moon is rumbling, everyone has left town or is like fully and completely terrified, not really knowing what to do, and it's just really sad and it's really depressing to look at. It's also really, really cool as someone who's appreciating a creepy thing in game design. Midnight on the third day, this is where Skull Kid is waiting to usher into the end times. We see him and also Tail. Tattle is extremely excited to see her brother again, but Tail knows that they don't have a lot of time to chat. So quickly, Tail basically gives us directions to go to 4 locations in Termina to try to stop the apocalypse. Unfortunately, the Skull Kid just backhands him out of the way, which Tail gets really pissed off at, and tells him to shut up, and then immediately elicits the creepiest, blood-curdling scream ever. It's haunting, right? Even as someone who's played it, it's haunting, but good God. So one of the things we had to do to pass time in the first 3-day cycle was help the Great Fairy, and she taught us how to use magic as a Deku scrub that's snot bubbles. While the Skull Kid ushers in the end times, we snot bubble that fool, and he drops his ocarina, well, our ocarina that he's stolen, and that's when we get it back, and we're flooded with memories of Zelda, who then reteaches us the Song of Time, and once we play that, we are whisked away back 3 days in time to the second that we exit the clock tower on the first day. If you look in your inventory, you notice you still have the ocarina, and so you turn right around, head back inside, and return to the Happy Mask Salesman, who is absolutely overjoyed to see that we have our ocarina back. He basically teleports across the room to an organ that just shows up out of nowhere. This is something that I really genuinely never really process, is he like seemingly just makes an organ appear, teaches us how to play the Song of Healing, and then it disappears. Basically, what the Song of Healing does is it like heals your sorrows. We play it, and suddenly our Deku form falls away in the shape of a mask on the ground, which is very interesting. Because of that mask, we can basically transform to and from a Deku scrubbed form whenever we want, which is fantastic. So we have some celebration, he's super excited, he's like, let's go, heck yeah, you're back as a Hylian. Now, where's my mask? We definitely didn't get that back. So he grabs Link, like by the throat, starts shaking him in the air. It's the wildest change in vibe ever. You're literally getting choked out by this Happy Mask Salesman as a child. He's shaking you in the air, and then he drops you and starts to freak out, holding his face, wobbling back and forth, being an absolute drama queen about it. We soon find out he's, obviously being a little dramatic, but we find out why. He then proceeds to tell us just how cursed and evil and creepy this mask is that he somehow got his hands on. I still don't know how he managed to get this mask, and I don't like that he has it. I don't trust him, and it freaks me out. But we realize the situation is pretty dire. And with that story and another dire situation, we realize that we have another world to save. Yes, dude, let's go! As Link in his Hylian form, who has a sword, we are finally able to leave Clocktown and see the rest of Termina, and what we see is genuinely depressing in every corner of it. People who are dealing with either their impending doom, horrific loss, and loss of different kinds, and impending death in different ways. With every mask, there is basically a backstory of a character, and when you help them out, you get their mask. And basically, each mask is kind of like a little traumatic story, and it's a wild ride, truly. So a large theme of this game is death, if you hadn't already guessed, and with the Song of Healing, a lot of the things that we do with that are basically helping dead or dying characters cross over to, the next life or whatever, right? Every time you play the song, you get a scene that is basically them crossing over, and it's just like replaying them being with their loved ones or their most joyous moments, and I think I cry every single time I see those scenes because they're really short, they're not super in-depth, but if you really think about it for more than a couple seconds, it really just gets to me. I don't know, maybe I'm just a crybaby, but this game makes me cry a lot.
No, that actually made me really sad. I forgot they walk off holding hands. Dude!
Now I'm here to remind you that Link is a child doing all of this, right? He's still a baby helping people cross over. And Mikau, who is the second character that you help cross over in the game, you literally have to drag his dying body from the lake onto the beach, where you then have to listen to his last words, and then Link watches him die and buries him on the beach. Link literally sets up his guitar as a grave and gives him a little like bow of respect. Link is like 8, I don't even know, he's a baby! That's so horrific! I think Mikau's entire thing, I just cry every time thinking about this poor sweet boy having to deal with all this, and also just how sad it is, the situation in which he died in. He was literally trying to help his girlfriend not be depressed because people stole her eggs, and then he got attacked for it and didn't survive really. And oh my god, it's just awful. God, what a big heel turn from me being so depressed about that. The biggest gameplay mechanic related thing with this though is that every time we have someone cross over, we basically just get their soul as a mask in which we use to transform into their form. And every time you put on the mask, the first time for sure, you're not allowed to skip it. There's a little cutscene that plays. Link puts the mask on and is immediately in excruciating pain, screaming in pain as the mask cracks apart. I can give you a little taste of that right here. Pretty wild, right? So with that, we have to remember 2 things. 1, with every transformation mask, there is an accompanying soul with it. So we got the Deku mask. Whose soul is in that mask? Well, remember the very beginning of the game, that sweet little sad tree that we came across that I totally pointed out, put it in your memory banks for later? It's that guy. So basically, there's an optional little fun side quest that you can get a mask from that's beside the Deku Palace. The Deku Butler runs a little fun race that if you do it as a Deku, you get to the end and he tells you that in your form, you remind him a lot of his son. And with the other transformation masks, you genuinely convince loved ones of Darmani and Mikau that you are Darmani and Mikau. They think you are that person. The Deku Butler saying, you remind me a lot of my son, who knows his son is no longer around. He doesn't want to believe that that's his son, but you look like his son. Most people, like myself, firmly believe that sweet little tree is the Deku Butler's son, who the Skull Kid murdered in order to turn you into a Deku scrub. That leads us to number 2 on the things that you must remember about the transformation masks is transformation masks are a very, very large part of the gameplay. You are transforming all the time. In the Stone Tower lead up, you have to transform 12 times in 20 minutes, not even, less than that. It's just constant every single time. You get to skip with that A button, but you know what's happening. You know what's happening in those frames that you cut out from existence. He is in pain, and that's a lot, and that's really, really messed up. Majora's Mask is full of horrors that no child should have to go through and endure. Link was sent back to enjoy his childhood, have a good time, and, not have to deal with this stuff, and yet Majora's Mask puts him through traumas over and over and over again. I just wish he could be happy. So Majora's Mask can be played a lot less linear than Ocarina of Time. So we're gonna rapid fire some stuff and some traumas here. Number 1, Link finds a sweet little girl that looks exactly like Malon, but her name is Romani, and she is on the ranch. So if you are fortunate enough to blow up the boulder blocking Romani Ranch and get there on night 1, you can help Romani defend the farm from them. They're basically aliens. They go and abduct cows. And there is aliens in Majora's Mask. And the section always freaks me out. The music that plays when the aliens are coming, it always gives me so much anxiety.
It's alien time! I hate this shit. The music is creepy, everything's creepy. Ah, it's only 5! It's only 5:15! We did it! We saved the day! We saved a poor little girl from being lobotomized.
If you don't help Romani on night 1, she gets abducted and lobotomized. You can find her on day 2, stumbling back to the farm from the far end of the field, not speaking, not saying a single word, looking incredibly dazed, and if you find her sitting on her normal spot later on, well, every once in a while just grab her head and start shaking it. And it's just really heartbreaking. Yet another weird and messed up thing that they added to Majora's Mask for some reason. The thought of Link finally seeing another familiar face, because, Termina is full of familiar faces, but Malon was one of the only people that he didn't lose in Ocarina of Time, and one of the only people in Majora's Mask that is, around his age in general. Having, one of the only other children you meet in the game have to go through something horrific like that and have Link see this happen, knowing that if you don't help her on night 1, that happens to her every time. It's something that you think about, being like, oh damn, I'm not at Romani Ranch right now. Romani's getting abducted and lobotomized because I'm busy doing other things. And that's something that I just thought of literally right now as recording this video. Okay, moving on from Romani, the bright spots of Romani Ranch. You get Epona back here. Epona, I guess, gets abandoned by Skull Kid here, and that's why he slams that boulder down, is because he doesn't want you to get your horse back. You once again have your friend, and she teaches you Epona song, so you can then summon Epona outside of Romani Ranch. You can summon Epona outside of Romani Ranch and further cycles with that song. So that's nice. There's also this wonderful little frickin' spot where you get to help a bunch of little chicks grow up. If you listen to this balding man's sob story about being fully airbutted out of a circus troupe, he gives you the Bremen mask, which is a leader's mask. And if you take that all the way to Romani Ranch, you will find this punk dude whose only regret in life is not seeing his sweet little chicks grow up to be roosters. So with the Bremen mask, you basically march around with the cutest little song playing. Once you collect all the chicks one by one, they all grow up, and then you can show this wonderful guy some wonderful pals all grown up. We're doing that because it's his only regret in life, so he can peacefully accept his death and welcome death with open arms. The death that's happening in 3 days. It's time now for the worst character in the game! Hooray! Sakon! Now, Sakon is this bald bastard who basically just is generally a scummy dude. He does nothing but smile and be creepy, and funnily enough, he is the only NPC in Zelda history that you can murder. He steals a bomb bag from an old lady on night 1. Nice job, very stand-up guy of you. If Link decides to stop him with not a sword but a projectile like a bow and arrow instead, he will literally explode, never to be seen again in that cycle. He literally dies. There are a bunch of scripted encounters for Sakon later on in game in the 3 days, and if you shoot him, he never shows up there. He's deceased. In Majora's Mask, Link can literally commit murder. Have I done it? Well,
that's between me and God.
when you go up to talk to him, he basically asks to see your stuff in a very creepy way. Hey, that's a nice sword. Can I see that? You can be a sweet boy. Be like, yeah, sure, dude. I'm 12. You can see that. That's chill. When you do that, Tattle literally turns red, which is the only time in the game she does this. Literally, you know, like a thing that's in Zelda is like they turn like yellow at enemies. Tattle turns red and starts beating the shit out of him, just smacking into his head and scaring him off and flying around and just freaking him out, right? Getting him to leave Link the hell alone. Very sweet of our girl who used to not really like us. Thank you, Tattle. His idol animation, if you can call it idol, is very creepy. He just runs around with his arms like rigid and just moving his little legs, just smiling. It's off-putting and it's gross. I don't like him. Sakon aside, the rest of Ikana Valley is literally infested with mummies and zombies. They pace endlessly around this music box house that's in the center of town, and they make you do fetch quests, and they're also just everywhere inside Ikana Castle, everywhere. The fun thing is about them is you can make them do a little dancey dance if you put on the right mask, and they have like multiple different dances. It's not just like one, there's like a little ballet one that they can do. They do like the drop down, but they just do some cool dances, alright? Oh sure, they'll be there, you'll see them. On top of the creepy mummies and zombies, Tattle makes sure to remind you frequently that there's a thirst for blood looming all around you, which is none other than the Garo, that if you use the Garo's mask, they will attack you and try to kill you because they're angry spirits who get real mad when they find out that you're not actually a Garo. But if you beat them, they give you a fun little hint about where to go in the game and remove themselves from this mortal coil right in front of you, like with a bomb. My favorite of the side quests and mask quests, even though it's long and convoluted, the couples mask quest. It spans all 3 days with a bunch of timed check-ins in a lot of ways that you can just straight up fail the quest. Basically, the Skull Kid goofed around and turned this grown-ass man, Kifai, into a child. Like, it's so funny because you can see he's just wearing his grown-ass man shirt as like a dress and his big ass floppy shoes. Because he's now a child in Clocktown, he gets mugged by Sakon, who, I mean it, just mugs old women and children. His engagement ring is stolen. It's a mask that he and his fiance Anju were to like bring together for their wedding, and it becomes the couple's mask and it means they're married, and it's really cool. Kefai like takes off and disappears because he's embarrassed that he lost his mask, his son's mask. He doesn't want to face Anju without it, and he's also a child, which is another layer of, hey man, maybe I don't want my fiance to see me that I'm like a kid now, because I need to get married in like 3 days. Their wedding is in 3 days, on the day of the Carnival of Time, by the way. The day that the moon crashes and kills everybody. Awesome. You have to jump through a million hoops and a million potential quest failure points, but if all goes well and you help Kefai get his mask back from Sakon, you actually get to reunite Kefai and Anju with 1 real-life minute to spare before the moon crashes. They basically just sit there holding each other until they die, if you don't rewind time, which is just a heartbreaking situation to be a part of. It's also stated that if you actually don't help Kefai get that mask back, but you get to the point in the quest line where he knows where to go, he will literally just get trapped in Sakon's hideout forever and until he dies, probably. I don't know if that's like when the moon crashes, because Ikana Valley is a little far from Clocktown. That's not great. Like I said earlier, every single mask is its own sad story in its own special little way. So, you know, the whole game and every side quest is like a fun little trauma gauntlet to run through. A hell of a premise for a game. If all goes well and you save all of the temples around Termina, you then have the ability to gather all of the big-ass Mario heads with legs to help you hold up the moon and stop the moon from crashing. The mask hates this. And you notice I didn't call it Skull Kid because he discards Skull Kid's body like trash on the ground and begins to just like talk to you as a mask, which is really creepy. But anyways, it ushers in the end times regardless of the fact that the Mario heads are there, but you have a little bit more time. You are violently slurped up by the moon and you go inside. When you get there, you see a bunch of creepy little happy mask salesman children running around with the boss masks in the game, and you can give them a bunch of masks if you collect all of them, and at the end of you giving them as many masks as they want, they all have like a really creepy little thing to say to you, and I have a favorite. It's the last one you get that comes from Twin Mold's Happy Mask Salesman Child, which is this: your true face. What kind of face is it? I wonder if that face under your mask, is it your true face? Creepy, right? I love it. The little kid sitting under the tree is wearing Majora's mask, and he's the one who also gives you Fierce Deity's mask. He ushers you into the final boss fight, which consists of 3 stages of the creepiest, weirdest, most unsettling designs and sounds from a boss, because a lot of them are like really high-pitched, like yips and weird noises. The monster itself is very fleshy and like muscular. It's very weird looking. Just look for yourself. But if you succeed, the world is saved. Hooray! You give the mask to the Happy Mask Salesman, who is overjoyed and walks away happily and literally fades off into, I don't know, the ether. Very creepy. The Skull Kid returns to normal and is genuinely shocked that Tattle and Tail both take him back as friends, which is so heartbreaking. They understand that he was really largely a puppet for the evil of the mask that was definitely, possessing him. There's also a really fun tidbit where the Skull Kid like smells you and tells you that you smell like the kid who taught him a fun song in the forest. And if you actually, in Ocarina of Time, do a side quest where you play Saria song for him, he learns a song, and it's also a side quest with the same character where you actually sell one of the Happy Mask Salesman's masks to, the Skull Mask, which is why he's called the Skull Kid. Really weird, right? 2 of the characters that the Happy Mask Salesman kind of interacts with in any way is Link and his customers. The Happy Mask Salesman is faded away. We are with our new friends, the Skull Kid and Tattle and Tail, and you get a little the end message that is just carved into a tree stump of just us and our friends, and there's a little trill of Saria's song that plays, and it always really makes me emotional every time I see it. I don't know why, but that is the end of Majora's Mask. The end feels like a happy ending, right? Like a good finale for our boy. He has new friends, he's happy, he now gets to live out a normal childhood, right? Wrong. Now we have to go to Twilight Princess with a haymaker. There's some gentle Twilight Princess spoilers ahead. Fair warning for those of you who haven't played. So there's a big old skeleton guy in Twilight Princess called the Hero Shade, and in Twilight Princess he teaches you some cool sword fighting moves and finishing blows and just things to spice up combat. It is said that he did this because he wanted to be remembered as a hero because he has regrets in life for nobody remembering his heroic deeds. In Hyrule Historia, it is canonically confirmed that that Hero Shade is indeed the hero of time, Link from the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, which breaks my heart. So our sweet little traumatized Link turned into a Stalfos. And for those of you who don't remember what a Stalfos is in the lore, Stalfos is basically what happens when anyone is lost in the Lost Woods forever, which has a lot of really sad implications. So, because of the Hero Shade's motivations to help Link in Twilight Princess, we know that Link, after having saved both Hyrule and Termina, because of leaving Termina and having Hyrule reverted back to before the world got really messed up in general, there's literally no proof of any of his heroic deeds. There's nothing for him to show. All of this trauma and stuff that he went through feels almost like it's for nothing. There's nobody that even remembers that he did anything. So this is where I hop, skip, and jump into my own very painful headcanon here. It really jumps off from Link turning into a Stalfos. So I horrifically think that after the events of Majora's Mask, Link still cannot accept the disappearance of his beloved friend Navi and goes out to look for her again because he's not able to enjoy life. He's missing his friend. He gets lost in the Lost Woods forever and dies and has that regret that no one could remember him all the way from his death until Twilight Princess. And at least in Twilight Princess, Link can give him some peace by learning his moves and being able to listen to a little bit of his stories. And now this is where it gets a little odd. It's also confirmed that Twilight Princess Link is a direct blood descendant of the Hero of Time, which makes things, in my opinion, more depressing and sad, because that alludes to the fact that Link grew up and had a family and still perhaps went out looking for his friend in the Lost Woods, and no matter what, his life was full, he had children, whatever, it still wasn't enough. And he lived with the regret his whole life and afterlife that he did all of these things and was changed so deeply because of them, and nobody remembered what he did, and it haunted him. It's so heartbreaking and genuinely sad that he looked forever for the only person that would remember any of his deeds at all. Now, my friends, you are caught up on the absolute emotional roller coaster that is my train of thought every time I play Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. The heartbreaking story of a little orphan boy who was forced to save the world twice over and had nothing to show for it at the end of the day, who searched endlessly for a friend that left him and maybe died off camera. He lived and died with regrets that he wasn't able to alleviate for many, many, many years until the events of Twilight Princess. I feel like, to a certain degree, every incarnation of Link is tragic and sad and depressing, but I fully think that the Hero of Time is the most tragic incarnation of Link. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am very passionate about this topic, and it's my very first video essay, so I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you guys for sticking around to the end. If you did, you are fantastic. Please subscribe if you want more. I have lots of ideas for more video essays and fun little series that we're going to do in this channel now that aren't just like gameplay. They're just going to be little fun think pieces and goofy stuff from me. I had such a fun time writing this and filming this and everything, so thank you guys so much for coming on this little journey with me. Drop a comment and let me know what you think about the saddest thing that happened to our sweet little Link boy. Have a beautiful day. Toodaloo. If my camera doesn't stop turning itself off, I don't understand what's happening. It's stressing me out. But anyways, it's not long before we see oh my god. It's not long before we see what is giving Zelda chase, and it's none other. We make our way to the forest temple, and we're Bro, that literally makes me sad even saying it. God, I feel like a baby. Oh god. So many things happen, so hold on. So, when we reach the end of the I feel like I keep running out of breath. But anyhow, you know that, dude, as someone who talks for a living, I sure as can't get this all out without running out of breath constantly. Me. Gets backhanded, everything's scary, blah, blah, blah. Okay, because we have yet another dire situation on our hands, we have yet another world to save. Yes, dude! Did I go? I did. Okay. I went off camera, I'm so sorry. And now, perhaps? Damn, I'm like hitting these talking points because I just love Majora's Mask so much, I don't even need my script anymore! I'm sorry, Matt, you don't need to.